Hey everybody, welcome back. It is week 6 of the hashtag Unite Kindness campaign. I am Angela Gorin, coming live from the nation's capital in Ottawa, Canada. And we've got with us a special guest, which is the first episode we're going to have with Mr. Ken Lubin, who's joining us from the United States. We're going to get into what this weekly challenge is here shortly, but I'm going to lightly introduce Ken Lubin. He's the family guy who comes from sport and health and wellness, but he's also an incredible executive leader that seeks out great executive leaders to help companies grow to those Fortune 500. So, Ken, thanks for joining us, not only for today's first episode, but also for the remainder of this hashtag Unite Kindness campaign as we start to get people positively sharing their stories across the world. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be part of this. I think, as we all know, the importance of health and fitness and wellness and being strong is more important now than ever before. I think of both in the States as well as in Canada during this whole COVID epidemic, people are really, trying to figure out what to do and what to do next. And there's no time like the present if you've been sitting on your butt to get it moving, or take advantage of any fitness that you've gained during this downtime and keep it going when you go back to the office, because a lot of people then will say, oh, I don't have time to do this or don't have time to do that. So I think that's probably step one of this whole conversation.
Yeah, no, exactly. So I guess, as everybody knows, and they've been staying tuned, but of course we've got new listeners, which is the whole point of this rolling campaign is what we're calling it. But hashtag Unite Kindness and bringing my company on board at Athletica Rewards, the Health at Home initiative is, dear to heart for myself, being, as in the audience has a former and a still professional cyclist and athlete. So I think for us, the conversation with MC2 and Global Dignity that have come on board to create this global campaign in 80 countries is to really spread the message of how important physical, mental, and nutritional well-being is. So perhaps maybe Ken, I think, because today's an example as we move forward and we start to interview and bring on board some really neat executives that are leading by leadership through this time, both from what they're doing for their companies, but also their employees. How are you, tell us a little bit about how this has affected you and your company, because you are an executive recruiter. I'm pretty sure this pandemic has changed some of how you go out and perhaps even, changed it completely. So, share a little bit about who you are and what you do day to day, and then let's get into a conversation about what drew you into doing a podcast.
No, so I probably should have said this earlier, but my day-to-day job is I'm an executive recruiter. I've been doing that for the last 20 years. I'm a managing director of the company called ZRG Partners that I pretty much started at the beginning with. And I do global executive search around the fintech marketplace, the technology space. I like to say specialty money, from crypto to anything else. Not a lot of pure banking stuff, but I have done that. But more the fun part of money. So it's been a great run. But as you can imagine, during this shutdown, it pretty much came to a screeching halt because everyone wanted to hold on to their capital. No one wanted to lend any money. Everyone's wondering what to do next. Where's this going to go and what's happening? So actually, and prior to that, I started a group on LinkedIn during the last recession called Executive Athletes. So I'm trying to take advantage of the whole downturn world, because it's an opportunity. Actually, what a lot of people don't know, it's an opportunity to, when it's slow, to actually ramp up and to go actually harder, because you can be creative. You can try things that you normally wouldn't try because no one really cares if you fail and no one really knows if you fail. So that's another piece. But lastly, it gets you out. We're already outside of our comfort zone. So here's an opportunity to stay outside of our comfort zone, and that being outside of your comfort zone is a new norm. So a couple of years ago, I launched this podcast called Executive Athletes after the group was on LinkedIn. I did networking event and put on a number of different events, but really the best way to reach people is through the podcasting world. And I love to talk to people about leadership. I love to talk to them about athletic performance and human performance, and trying to live their best life possible, both in business as well as sport. So that's why I'm super psyched to be part of what you're working on.
Perfect. Well, we're excited to have you, and I think that's like so key. Some of the positive messages that you're sending out there, in the sense of like, obviously, that you started Executive Athletes in the last turn of like when the economy was, 2008, 2009, wasn't it? Right, when we saw that spike well over a decade ago. So I think a lot of economists were starting to talk about, it was about time, because we see this cycle happen every 10 years. So it was amazing that 2021, and interesting enough, a pandemic is what set it off. Would it have happened if COVID didn't take place, is one of those kind of conversations that has been happening. So, interesting, because I think you're in a unique marketplace. You understand what is happening. And I agree with you wholeheartedly as a tech founder, and as well, somebody who's in the fitness world, to kind of get through, like really work harder during times like this, which is a positive, a great message to be saying. So yeah, like maybe tell us a little bit more about, you started Executive Athletes, well over a decade ago. What was your vision? Like, what got you started? Like, what was that key turning point of, obviously you did it in a recession, but there was a purpose. And I think the audience should know that.
So it was totally a selfish purpose, right? Is what it was. It was, if I'm going to cold call people, I'm going to cold call people like me. And I figured there had to be other individuals out there who love to train, who love to race, who love to compete. And then it took on a whole life of its own after that. And that's what I think was a lot of fun with it. I've talked to super cool people doing super cool things with unique initiatives all over the world. And what it really taught me is how to become a master connector in so many different ways. And I love connecting other people and other individuals, because if I can be a catalyst to helping them grow their business, or a catalyst to helping them become better in XYZ, or just to reach out to someone to chat with, it's really what I love to do. And yeah, my recruiting business, I didn't know that when I got in the recruiting business, that I like doing that, until actually this whole thing happened. And that's been a blast about it, because that's what I do, is I connect people. But again, it taught me how to, back then, being out of the comfort zone. The internet wasn't really interactive until 08, 09, when Facebook really took off, LinkedIn. Yeah. Prior to that, there were mostly static pages that were MySpace or bad spin-offs of that. And once the web became interactive, it was an opportunity to try new things, right? And to continue to reach out to people and try to spread a message of, of goodness, of motivation, of try to, get people to not get just bogged down in their daily lives, because it's so easy to, but to get out there and, and be fit, or go for a run, or go to the gym, or, do what you love to do. It could be playing an instrument, it could be coding, but following that passion. And my passion was just going after athletics, but it could have been executive pianist if I was a pianist, right? Or executive whatever, coders. And it's the same type of thing, but connecting people with similar interests.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. So I think obviously over the course of the 10 plus years you've been doing this, you've most likely have had, like, how many podcasts has Executive Athletes hosted? Like, how many podcasts have you done?
So since I started the podcast about 18 months ago. So okay, I'm at about, yeah, it's fairly new, about 115 podcasts, but with all different types of people. I try to not just there's a lot of people on the podcast circuit that just interview the same people over and over again, and everyone hears the same voices from everyone. And I try to get people that aren't sort of mainstream type people, but people that can make impact and that can actually make a difference, that's out there. So the podcast thing really started then. Prior to that, I would put on events in New York and Boston where I'd get speakers and everything else, but the reach wasn't really there. And I figured that I still have tons of questions about training. I still have tons of questions about business. And I figured if I had the questions, multiple other people would have those questions. So just try to get them answered. It's really what I did.
That's really cool. So I think, what would be, and I'm putting you on the spot here, but I think obviously listeners that are tuning in today, what would maybe be the top 3 individuals that have you've interviewed or you've included in an event where they've somewhat for you just gone like, wow, like this person's very inspirational. Like interviewing them or having them on your podcast meant something, or having them on stage at one of your events. Who would those kind of top 3 people be?
It's actually just one that I posted. This last one is a woman who's an extreme skier. She wrote a book called The Art of Fear. Kristen Ulmer was amazing. It's probably perfect during this whole time of fear and anxiety and everything that's going on. I had an interesting guy who was in an accident and had both of his legs severed because he was actually out partying and fell into a train tracks in the Czech Republic and woke up with no legs. And now he's super inspirational and doing the race across America in a sit chair and that type of stuff. That's an interesting one. But then just sort of, I've had numbers of different coaches, right, that all provide different types of feedback. And I've never really thought about what's my most interesting. Some are go more in depth than others that are, but it's those 2 sort of stick out to me for the time being. But
Nice.
I'm sure there's hundreds of other, there's a whole bunch of other ones as well.
Yeah, it's hard when you get put on the spot
Yeah,
with,
exactly.
with a particular question, but yeah, definitely, it's the type of people that, especially when you run a podcast or you run an organization that's reaching out to executive athletes, you're sure to come across some probably very inspirational or true leaders, right? That just come across as incredibly genuine to take some leadership from. But perhaps maybe share a little bit, Ken, about where people can tune in or check you out. I think that's one of the things, and we'll definitely make sure for those that are listening in that we include the link to Executive Athletes if you want to find out more information, or also in regards to your recruiting company as well, because obviously wanting to give exposure to all of the individuals that are helping us out. But I think, yeah, obviously people are going to be interested to tune in and perhaps listen to some of that, or even they might be an executive athlete that, you're looking for people all the time, just like you interviewed myself. So they might be somebody that we can get on the lineup for you as well.
Perfect. So the best way to I'm really active on LinkedIn. It's sort of the professional world. So you can find me, Ken Lubin. I think it's linkedin.com/KLubin. So that's there. You can find me, the company I work for is called ZRG Partners. So it's zrgpartners.com, but you can check me out also at executiveathletes.com and go to the blog, because that's where everything's posted. That's where articles are. That's where all the podcasts are and everything. So it's a great place to be. But those are probably the easiest ways to check me out. You can email me at ken@executiveathletes.com. It's not that hard. If you have questions or suggestions or, any thoughts you'd like to share, I'm wide open, and I typically get back to you as quickly as possible.
That's awesome. That's perfect. So yeah, I think, in the sense of like, where is Executive Athletes heading for yourself? Like, I think kind of to wrap things up, I always like to say, like, you've shared your story and your why and what you're doing. What's next? What do you see in the future out of coming, thanks to obviously what we've been put in the last 2.5 months as the United States and Canada and other countries slowly start to emerge and the economies start going again? What are your hopes and visions with Executive Athletes and where it's headed?
Really, what I'm just looking to do is, continue to talk to great guests, continue to, spread the word of sort of positivity and health and wellness and connectedness. Where's it going to go? I have no idea. It's sort of a fun journey, I think, I have more fun on the journey than the end result. So my sort of philosophy on that stuff is just go hard all the time and great things will happen. So that's where things stand right now with Executive Athletes.
Awesome. I love it. Well, this works out really, really well to end this perfect kind of, chat. And as we move forward, obviously you're going to be taking over the reins and being more of the interviewer. So this is going to be really fun for those that are tuning in. This obviously is week 6 and we have a challenge to put out to the world. So the weekly challenge is we want people to share incredible stories or photos and videos of what makes them a true leader. we want to show that highlight of like, maybe it's your mom or your dad working from home, or maybe it's yourself, you're a self-made entrepreneur, you're trying really hard to get out there. This has to do with mental well-being, right? And being present in the moment. So not all of our challenges are about breaking a sweat. It is about real people. And I think in light of executive athletes coming on board, we're looking for those executive athletes that are out there, busting it during this time, trying out really hard. Yeah, start getting prepared to start showing some of those amazing photos of people in your life that are truly making an impact, being leaders, and they are people that are executive athletes. So, and possibly what we'll end up doing is getting some awesome people, Ken, that you can actually interview on your podcast.
Awesome. No, this will be a blast, and I'm really looking forward to it. And thanks for having me be a part of it.
Yeah, no, well, we're very excited. And of course, like, I'm looking forward to introducing all of the different hosts as they come on throughout the course of the campaign. Leanne Lang, of course, has been with us since day one, and you're joining us in June. And we'll soon be announcing 2 other main hosts that will be starting to come on board throughout June, throughout all the way to September. So this is great. But stay tuned, of course. Check out all of the links if you're listening in today, and tune in obviously next week. Every Tuesday we come live at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can tune in and listen to some inspirational stories that are going to be coming live. But Ken, again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Perfect. Thank you.